Hello guys and girls, it's me, Metalman8713 here today. How are you, guys and girls? So yep, I'm here to bring you a brand new YouTube video today, and I haven't done one of these videos in a very long time, since probably about July-ish of last year, sort of. Yeah, in those two videos I was doing the history of two heavy metal bands. I was telling you about the history of the band, right from their humble beginnings of where they formed, obviously, right up to the present day. And so, yeah, I thought I might do one of those videos again for this video, and in this one I'm going to be telling you about, well, it's still within the rock genre, but this time I'm going to be telling you the history of progressive rock band Marillion in this video. So, yep, I will be doing this video in two parts. In this part I'll start this again. I'll be talking in this part about the early years of the band, and well, these two periods of Marillion are two distinct eras in the band's history. So in this part I am going to be talking about, I'll say again, the early years of Marillion, and also I will be talking about the Fish era of the group, which started from when he joined the band back in 1981 up until about 1988 when he left, obviously. And then afterwards, in part two, I will be talking about the era when Steve Hogarth, who was born in Kendal, by the way, if you guys didn't know, joined the band, and then their history from 1989 up to the present day. So it's going to be like that. So excellent. And well, I'm going to say now, enjoy this video. Peace. Ooh, 1 minute. Bit blurry there. Trim that down a bit. Well, so yep, guys and girls, and this is part one, so here we go. Just before I tell you the history of what's happened, I am going to be telling you, just before that, a brief overview of the band. So, here we go. Da, 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 da. Well, anyway, Marillion are one of the most successful prog-rock bands of all time from the UK, and they are the most successful band of a progressive rock subgenre movement in the 80s called neo-progressive rock, which, unlike progressive rock which came before in the 70s and also before that declined in popularity, well, unlike that, there's more emotional lyrics contained in some of the songs, and that's expressed in the lyrics in most neo-progressive rock songs. And did you know there were only two bands from that genre who managed to achieve worldwide success, international success if you like? Those two bands were Marillion and a band from Canada called Saga. So, yep. The first 7 albums with the band, the Fish era with the band, I'll tell you this, they've had, well, between 1983 and 1994 they had about 7 top 10 albums in the UK album chart, including a #1 album in 1985 called Misplaced Childhood. I will be getting up to that later on in the video. Well, anyway, you know what? They have had 7 top 10 albums, well, in total, including Steve Hogarth era, and also during the Fish era, 11 top 40 singles, which came out in between 1983 1988, and also including 3 top 10 hits, both in 1985, Kaylee and Lavender Blue, and in 1987 with Incommunicado. So, well, and I'll tell you a bit about Steve Hogarth period in part 2. I don't know if I'm going to do part 2 today. I may do it tomorrow, maybe tomorrow morning if I get up early, I promise. Well, anyway, Marillion are English progressive rock band, obviously. Well, and they formed in the town of Aylesbury in the county of Buckinghamshire back in 1979 by a drummer called Mick Pointer, who would later form a group called Arena, guitarist Steve Rothery, and did you know he lived in Whitby when he was younger, so I'm guessing he may have probably moved down there to, when he heard the Marillion are looking for a guitarist to audition, and others formed as well, including, and also did you know Fish was not the original singer in the band, and well, that duty was held by somebody called Doug Rastus Irvin. Rastus is his nickname, and who handled vocals, and also before those two roles got separated, when he left, he was also the bass player as well, handled the bass duties as well. And yep, well, they formed in 1979 under the name of a J.R.R. Tolkien book, that man who was the one who made the Lord of the Rings books. It came from a title of a book, and well, from a book title and the name of the book called Silmarillion, which was later shortened down to Marillion 2 years later to avoid any copyright conflicts. Well, anyway, then they formed in 1979, and then after months and months of rehearsing and all that and what have you, the band played their first gig on March the 1st, 1980. March the 1st, 1980. Well, yep, and so, and then afterwards they played, and afterwards they made a few demos during that period, and 2 demos during the summer, which at that time in the early 80s they started to build up an early following, and their first gig was at Berkhamsted Civic Centre in Hertfordshire on March the 1st, 1980, and then afterwards they gained a popularity from here on out. Yep, and then, well, you know what? After they recorded 2 demos in 1980, which one of them contained a couple of early versions of 2 Marillion songs, which would end up on possibly Script for a Jester's Tear possibly. So, yep, and then when 1981 comes around, Doug Irvin leaves the band, and there's 2 roles vacated in there, vocals and singer. Well, vocals and bassist. I'm getting everything bottled up, aren't I? Well, luckily, there was an audition at Manor Farm Studios in Leyland Farm Studios in Leyland Farm Studios in 1981, the day after New Year's Day, where a vocalist called Fish joined the band, who also he's from Scotland, and he gained that nickname Fish because of the amount of time he spent in the rubber-dub-dub, in the tub, and then swimming out in the scrub. Well, anyway, he got the nickname Fish because his real name, I'll tell you his real name, it was called Derek William Dick. That's his real name, and I don't think really he would have been likely to get anywhere with that name, and I mean get a music career with that name. But so he had to find that nickname as quick as possible. So yeah, and then afterwards, a bassist called William Minnitt joined the band. He was in the band for only a part of 1981. And also they got a keyboardist and a keyboard player as well called Brian Jellerman, who completed the lineup. This lineup, its first gig was at the Red Lion pub in Bicester, Oxfordshire. 14th of March 1981, which was also Fish's first performance with the band, as part of his 7-year career with Marillion. The band made another demo in 1981 which would contain very early versions of a few Marillion songs again, which would this time really end up on the first album, such as well, it was originally another song, but it got rewritten into The Web, the bits of it got rewritten to 3 songs: The Web, Chelsea Monday, and He Knows You Know, off script for Justice Tia. And then, at the end of 1981, Brian Gellerman left the band. They had a couple more lineup changes at this point, and was replaced by a bass player who was born in Middlesbrough and then grew up in Aylesbury, and until he joined Marillion. His name was Pete. I'm trying to say his name. Pete Trewavers. That's it. Pete Trewavers. Pete Trewavers. That's his name. He joined the band in 1981 1982, and that was I'm getting it muddled up. He joined it in 1981 and 1982, and also Mark Kelly. And Mark Kelly joined the band just before that, earlier on. Well, Mark Kelly joined first, and then Pete joined after, replacing Gellerman in 1982, which would create the lineup, which created the very first Marillion lineup on the first album. During these early years, they were starting to gain a popularity at this point. So then afterwards, to gain a wider attention, they went on the Friday Rock Show, which was hosted by Tommy Vance at the time in 1982, and they did a 3-song demo of The Web. Of The Web, 3 Boats from Candy, and The Sun, Forgotten Sons off the first album. That was a success. And then later on, they released their first single later on in 1982, called Market Square Heroes, which came out in December. Here's the cover right here, and also they have the jester ripping his mask off his face. And then afterwards they got an epic progressive rock song, which they made, obviously, got Grendel as the B-side, which was great success. Script for Justice Tia, that's the very first album, seeing the cover right here, which has that same jester's figure on here playing the violin in a room of some sort, like a circus room. It came out in 14th of March 1983, which the band spent 3 months recording in the Marquee Studios in London, and also the band did have great chart success, and the album's very critically acclaimed as well. This album reached number 7 in the UK when it came out in 1983, which is quite excellent as well. And then they did get higher when their later albums came out. And it was the only Marillion album to feature Mick Pointer, who got fired halfway through the tour in 1983, and was replaced by the current drummer Ian Mosley, who became part of the core lineup of Marillion since 1984. Well, the core lineup of Steve Rothery, Pete Trewavers, Mark Kelly, and Ian Mosley, because Fish left later on. I'll say that later on. And also 2 singles came out from this album. The first single was He Knows You Know. It was the first of 11 top 40 hits for the band. When that came out, you'll be able to see the cover right now briefly. I'm sorry I have no separate microphone for this narration, but here's the cover with the jester. It peaked at number 35 in the UK, and all these cover arts during this period were designed by artist called Mark Wilkinson, who created all the Marillion album covers, singles, live album covers, sleeves and everything, right up until 1988, when he left with Fish to create his album covers. And also, did you know this? He also created covers for Judas Priest as well, from some point in their 80s albums up to the present day. And also, he's creating the brand new cover for Iron Maiden's The Book of Souls, which will be coming out in September. I am really excited for that album. and I hope it's bonza. Yep. Well, anyway, back to Marillion. The first single, He Knows You Know, came out in 1983, and came out in January, and then afterwards it reached number 35 in the UK at the time. Later on, a second single called Garden Party. Right, yeah, I've got to say, great album covers and single covers these, you know. But yeah, well, came out. Well, there was two versions of Garden Party, but with one lyric change. There was one line in that one called, one line in there, but I'm not gonna say it. Well, but he did say, yeah, I'm so. And that got replaced by a line called, in the single version, called I'm miming, and reached number 16 in the UK in 1983, which was the band's biggest chart success up until that time. So, later on in 1983, they recorded over a period from November till February of the next year. Released on the 12th of March 1984, they recorded Marillion Fugazi, it was called, this album. It came out in March, I'll say it again, and then also this time it reached number 5 when it came out, and the band's first gold album at that time. Oh, it's building up here, isn't it? And yep, that came out, and also it was the first to feature Ian Mosley, who replaced Mick Pointer in the group, and also some of the songs on that album have got a more electronic sound to the album, which was, you know, partly a step forward, if you like from the darker themes of Script Register's Tear. Punch and Judy, the first single of this album, came out in January 1984, and it reached number 22 in the UK. 29. Number 29? 22 in the UK, that was for Assassin. 29 was for Punch and Judy. Huh? Punch and Judy, Punch and Judy. Do. Was a machine, pierced our dreams of the gods from a beauty queen. Punch and Judy. Yep. Well, anyway, the lyrics of that song are about a good marriage gone bad, basically Punch and Judy, if you like. Well, you know. Hey, and it also had the famous jester on the cover. You're using the Punch and Judy robots. There we are, punching the Judy robot. I mean, puppet. Robots. They're not robots. They're not robots. They're puppets. And also, I forgot to say earlier on, the band was signed by EMI around the time of the Rock Show sessions. They remained with that label up until 1996, when they left to sign to Castle Communications label. Well, anyway, Assassin, here's the cover right here. It came out later on in April, and then it reached number 22 in the UK. Number 22 in the UK, and the lyrics of the song, which has a narrator describing himself as an assassin, and the lyrics also appear to, you know, like, concern character assassination, if you like. And well, yeah, this was the band's third. This was the band's third fourth top 40 single came out, so the album and the album and tour was really great success at the time. Well, anyway, we're now moving on to their breakthrough period in 1985, and in 1985 1985, Marillion released their most successful album ever. Here it is, right here. It's Misplaced Childhood. That came out in June 1985, and also it reached, and it was their only album to reach #1 in the UK. You know, that is a great achievement to have a #1 album in this country when you're a music artist out there. It reached #1 for 2 weeks due to the success of 3 hit singles. The first one, which came out, was Kaylee. It came out in May 1985, as you can see here. I mean, April, well, around, well, if you like, April, May 1985, if you like. That came out here, and then also it came out and it reached, it's also the most successful single ever made by the group. It reached #2 in this country. It was kept off the top spot by a song called You'll Never Walk Alone by a supergroup called The Crowd in 1985. And it was the band's sole hit, if you like, on the US charts. On the US Billboard Top 100, it peaked at number 74 at that time. And also, the lyrics of this song was sort of partly about one of Fish's former girlfriends, many girlfriends at the time. And that's where he got Kaylee from. And he sort of got the basic hook around Christmas time, and then finished the Christmas time in 1984, and then he finished the rest of the song off later. Later on in 1985, they released their second single called Lavender, which here's the cover. That came out in. Sorry, I couldn't find any spaces to show these covers in the video. Let me just quickly explain why. In the last video clip of this video, every time I tried to split it, it just ended up losing all the rest of the video footage as well. So sorry, I didn't really want that to happen. So instead, as plan B, I'm showing all the clips the rest of the images of Marillion single and album covers, what should have been shown in the video. So and part 2 of the Fish era is coming up, 85 to 88. So I'll see you guys in that video, and you know what? These are great.